Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Okay, so this just happened and I'm freaking out right now. So I, 15-year-old female, was chilling with my homies. We do free running together, they are all guys. And I start practicing my backflips, and I'm getting pretty close to landing it. This little kid comes up to us and asks if he can do that. Me, being the literal 15-year-old I am, tell him, "You'll have to ask your parents if you can. I'm not sure if you're allowed to. Because you know, backflips aren't exactly known for being the safest thing in the world." Okay, the little kid runs off, we think nothing of it. A couple of minutes later, we hear an unholy screeching that's coming from none other than Karen. A good 100 meters away at this point, stomping over. I decide to get one more try in before we have to deal with this woman for the next 15 minutes. This one though goes wrong and I end up screwing up my leg pretty bad. It's literally twisted in a position that is very wrong. My friends are checking me. This absolute hag has just come over to us by this point and the woman screams at me. "Did you tell my son he can't do a backflip?" "No, I told him he had to ask you before doing so." At this point, I'm kinda gasping this out, but I've restrained myself from swearing thus far. I'm an Aussie at heart. We moved to the USA when I was 14, so I learned all the choice swear words there. And I have an accent. The entitled mother gasps. "There are foreigners in our mix. Have you been smuggled in?" I just looked at her dumbfounded. "What the? No. No?" She looks at my leg. "You saw me coming over and decided to fake an injury. Hey!" She kicked my leg at least 3 times in quick succession. Pretty hard, mind you, so it would have hurt even if I already wasn't injured. I positively roar the word duck. My friends get in between her and some parents from this park come over. Half of them get between the entitled mother and I. Half of them check if I'm okay and call an ambulance and the cops. The entire time the entitled mother is ranting about foreigners and denying her son a chance. What in the world, lady? My parents have been called by one of my friends. About half an hour later, the entitled mother is in cuffs, and I'm in a hospital with a broken leg. We are definitely pressing charges, and the dad of the little kid took him back home. The worst part about this story? The little kid never got to do his backflip. 3 years ago, I was at the local grocery store with my college friends. A little side note, I'm autistic. And it's very uncomfortable to me when others touch me or speak to me aggressively. My friends went to the chip aisle to search for a particular brand of chips they liked, while I went to gather ingredients for queso. It's important to note that I was wearing a green shirt in the same shade employees wore, but I was only wearing ratty jeans and sneakers. The scene is set. A single 19-year-old gangly female reaching for some microwavable cheese blocks. Suddenly, I am whirled around by what I can only describe as a Karen Harvey from hell. Poorly dyed black hair, spray-on tan, and the works. "You, where are the gardening supplies? I've been looking everywhere for an employee. And here you are, probably not on break." "Oh, this is a grocery store, ma'am. They most likely don't stock supplies for gardening. Also, I don't work here. Employees wear green shirts with black vests and name tags." She scoffs. "Nonsense. You're new, aren't you? Didn't listen during training? Well, I'm going to find your manager and you, little missy, are coming with me." At this point, Karen grabs my upper arm hard and practically drags me from my intended purchase. I am shocked, scared, and eventually my brain realizes that this is a dangerous zone situation and I start struggling and telling her to let me go calmly but firmly. "Ma'am, please. I don't work here. Even if I did, this is X store. They don't stock gardening tools." And I'm cut off by her sharply striking my face. She peers at me as if I'm some troublemaking lazy teen that has gone unnoticed in the workplace. "Listen, young lady, where I come from, we had to work hard to get where we are. You parading around acting like you're on a break is going to come to an end with me. Understand? Now be a good girl for once and let me talk to your boss." I wait, tearing up quietly on a bench while my friends run up to me. They comfort me with one of them saying that I should press charges for assault. Hell yes, I'm charging this weirdo. The manager walks over, assessing my appearance, and tells Karen who hit me that no, "I don't work here." Before Karen can retort, I speak up. "Sir, this woman has hit me and made threats against me. Can you call the police and have them see the security footage?" The manager looks shocked. "Ma'am, is this true?" "Certainly not. This little girl told me to get lost when I was asking for assistance." I couldn't believe the audacity of this lady. "Well, this is a serious accusation, so I'm calling the police anyways." Karen turns tail and bolts. My friends managed to coerce me into leaving the store, and we go back to my apartment to eat and watch TV. Later, I got a house call from the cops with Karen in handcuffs. Turns out she had been shoplifting in that store for a little under a month by coercing younger college-age employees to check her out and forget to ring up things like expensive cuts of meat, bottles of drinks, and so on. The employees were all too scared to do anything because she had a photo ID of the regional manager who was her brother, and she claimed he would fire them if anything was reported. I told the cops my statement and they took it straight to her brother, who despite being close to her, pressed charges for theft, assault, and other grievances. Backstory. So basically I worked at a fast casual burger chain. It's not a very large one, but it was franchised. This chain I worked at was owned and managed by a very young university dropout who had his parents buy him this franchise. It was entirely staffed by females, plus me. I'm a male. He had no experience in managing or leading a restaurant. I had worked there as part of the original crew and eventually became a supervisor there. This is when the problem started. I was a 15-year-old male working part-time, so he didn't take many of my opinions seriously. When I got my first paycheck, I noticed no pay increase. It's generally a well-known fact that increased responsibilities meant increased pay of any sort. This is when I started to dislike working there, as I was supervising adults who were being paid more than I was simply because adults have a higher minimum wage. His response to me was that he couldn't afford it. While I obviously can't prove it, but with my shifts under my leadership, our customer reviews were consistently 5-star reviews. I never once received lower than 5 stars during my shifts as I focused on customer service. The manager, however, was greedy and never understood the concept of customer service. With many shifts, when a customer would complain about cold fries or an undercooked burger, he simply would tell them they were wrong. Of course, these customers were never to return. He was a cocky douche and he was a horrible manager who consistently was absolutely useless. Due to his treatment of customers, he had an abysmal income of roughly $8,000 per week. A manager should never be making comments on their employees like my coworker and I were too fat to be sitting on his chair because we will break it with our weight. I play football, I'm not fat, and just have a large muscle mass. One time I worked during a holiday, I was expecting the provincial holiday pay in accordance with provincial requirements. He never paid me appropriately. When I, along with many other co-workers under my direction, approached him about the pay, he promptly told me it was not my place to talk to him about the law as he was the owner. That I was just a high schooler and he said to me, "According to the law, you are not entitled to this pay," which was not accurate whatsoever. Whatever. One night during a close, which I had covered for the only other supervisor who had called in sick, we had no customers, none, for the 2 hours leading up to the closing. So I made the decision to shut down the fryers 15 minutes early so that our staff could get out earlier. This would have saved him money. Of course, we had a customer come in 5 minutes before close and I greeted him. He asked me for only fries and of course I had to, unfortunately, let him know that we had no fries left as we were about to close. This customer begged for us to turn on the fryers again and make them fries, and I said no. That's a story for another subreddit, by the way. This customer angrily left and left me my first and only 1-star review because we were out of fries at that time. I understand that had I left the fryers on, this would have been avoided. The next morning I arrived at my shift and he approached me and gave me a verbal warning about the incident and said that he would be deducting the cost of the fries, the order, and a penalty for the 1-star rating at a cost of $80. Something he had never done before with anyone. After he did that with me, furious about this request as it was completely unfair, I did some legal research. I then screenshotted the appropriate legislation and texted him saying that it was completely illegal. He didn't respond. 10 minutes before the end of my shift, he fired me for repeated poor performance. After this, I informed all of my prior colleagues about this incident and asked them all to contact the Interior Labor Board, and so began the arduous process of the Labor Board. 8 months later, the Labor Board sided with all of us for wrongful terminations. I received $3,500 for my termination, along with my termination pay. As it turns out, in fact, he did underpay me on every single one of my holiday shifts, and I'm not too sure how much the others received, but overall from all of us, it totaled around $15,000 to $18,000. I then got a job right next door at a restaurant whose glass faces my previous workplace, and every morning I got to see him running around as he was short-staffed, and many of my co-workers quit when I was fired because he was a devil to work with. I found out after this from his cousin who went to high school with me that he had sold his car to pay for our bills, a 2017 Mercedes C300, stopped paying royalties, and then got sued by the franchise owners for breach of contract. The restaurant was subsequently shut down and he was out of income, over $1.50 in price. From last I heard, he now works at his father's fast food restaurant as a regular employee. Near my school, I'm in year 7 or 6th grade for you dear Americans, there is an Asda. For my American friends, it's like a British Walmart. All the kids from my school go there every day, but my school recently developed a new way of paying for stuff and not as many go now. Me and my 2 friends, names are Sev and Isabel, were inside. We walked down to the biscuit section where the food is cheap and is also next to the bakery. After grabbing our stuff, we wandered down to the bakery aisle to see a 90-ish-year-old lady reaching for the last loaf of bread. She was taking her time, and Sev, being the tallest, went forwards to help the lady. Suddenly, we saw the heck trophy herself. Karen, she flew around the corner like an ice skater, shoved the old lady, and then ran off with the bread. Sev, being a tall, autistic, scary Russian female with dark glasses, followed Karen to go have a chat with her, and me and Isabel went to help the old lady. Turns out, when Karen had shoved her over, she had shattered her pelvis. We called an ambulance and the police, and within minutes, the old lady was in an ambulance. And this is how Karen's conversation went. "Miss, we are going to ask you to put that bread down." One of the officers told her, "Why? I paid for this bread with my own money. It's mine." We watched the surveillance footage. You didn't even pay for the bread after damaging somebody else for it. Then she acted all sad. "My family has no money and we need food. This is the only thing my son can eat because he's allergic to everything." Bear in mind, a lot of what she was wearing was Gucci. The 2 officers then handcuffed her and told her that she's being arrested for assault and theft. Then she was spit off in a cop car. A few weeks later, the old lady somehow got in contact with me and my friends and thanked us for helping. Turns out her husband has a very serious disease, and his favorite meal is her homemade salmon and cream cheese sandwiches. Here is the story. When I, 28 female, was 11 when my mom and dad divorced. After they divorced, my mom left me with our dad and never wanted to see me. My dad met a girl from another country and we moved there because moving into our country would make my stepmom's son need to learn another language. But I spoke English well, so me and my dad moved to the States. After they married, it was a lot of change, so I started becoming more and more sad and hopeless. Mom not wanting me anymore, moving to another country, new school, language I'm not used to speaking, stepbrother and stepmom, dad becoming more like stepmom, so I became depressed. I felt hopeless because I didn't have any friends, and my dad likes my stepbrother more than me and never really paid any attention to me. He always told me that I was being dramatic when I told him anything about my depression, but then when I never tell him anything, he worries. So now, a week ago, my stepmom got into a car accident and died in a hospital. When my dad was acting sad around me, I told him he's just being dramatic and it's a no big deal. My stepbrother then told me that I was being too harsh on my dad. I don't know, am I the jerk for saying this? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're the jerk. This isn't an appropriate situation in which to teach him a lesson about how he hurt you by saying that. You probably need to apologize even though it won't fix things. I am surprised your stepbrother was calm enough to realize he didn't understand the gravity of your actions. Another commenter adds, "You are the jerk." What 28-year-old adult would think telling their newly grieving father that he was being dramatic about his wife for over 15 years dying? If you can say something that cruel to someone, why be there at all? Your dad didn't support you or handle your situation very well. That's fair. But someone died in an accident. Why are you even still in these people's lives at 28 when you clearly have zero emotional attachment or relationship with them? The third commenter goes with, "You are the jerk, and the huge one. And you just proved that everyone who called you dramatic was completely justified. What a disgusting thing to do. You're 28 years old and have had plenty of time to get help for whatever you saw as shortcomings in your upbringing. Instead, you choose to slam the father who at least kept you alive with some sort of gotcha move at a critical moment, the death of his wife. There is something very wrong with you, and you're blaming your father unfairly for whatever it is. You're an adult. Behave like a decent one. I hope this was a fake story, because if not, you're toxic. Many people have been through what you have as a child and managed to find a path in life. And there are people like you who blame everyone around themselves instead. I will say it again. You are the jerk." A fourth commenter seals it with, "Everybody's a jerk, but you less than your dad." Your comment really wasn't very appropriate at the time. It's probably a thought that should have, at the time, remained a thought. It doesn't mean that you have to be there to support him through this, because he's never been there for you. Do you remember what your mother was like before the divorce? A mother doesn't usually leave her children unless she's really not that nice to them and never wanted them in the first place. Or there is a possibility that they are not actually that child's mother. For all you know, your dad fathered a child by another woman and your mother agreed to raise him. Unlikely, but it might be worth doing an ancestry test just to check this. Perhaps you were adopted, which is why no one really cared, and your dad felt obligated to continue providing for you, but not really caring for you. My suggestion is a therapist. You've got a lot to unpack. The abandonment by your mother, moving countries, the disinterest of your father, and so on. Update from OP. I talked to my dad like a lot of you suggested. It went okay. Not great, but okay. I apologized like a lot of you suggested, and to my stepbrother too. I told him and spelled out to him the things he did to me and why I said that. He then said he didn't know what else to do. And like one of the comments, he said just wanted me to be happy. And yeah, I'll probably get therapy sometime after New Year. One thing I missed in telling this story is that my mom died. She killed herself shortly after the divorce. And please don't ask me if I kill puppies for a hobby. I ain't Jeffrey Dahmer. A lot of people ask where my dad and I came from. We lived in the Philippines and moved to the US.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.